Welcome to the Mad Panda podcast, where hip hop doesn't have an expiration date. I am Nate, along with my co-host Silas, and today we're diving deep into everything hip hop. So let's get it.
And as usual, if you like what you're hearing, please like, subscribe, and share so that we can keep building on this thing.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So today we are going to talk about political hip hop.
Political hip hop.
Sorry, my dog was about to drink my drink. All right. Yeah. So for me, political hip hop, like I've always liked political music, like anything that has some sort of message, and that's particularly more kind of, I guess, left wing or, rebellious type of
Yeah.
music. So, and I think hip hop is just in its very nature is political. I mean, in the sense that, it was kind of all about rebellion. It was a reaction to the times, the different,
Yeah.
the social and economic times, in the inner cities of like New York and other places. So, and, one of the earliest songs I can think of is like probably The Message by
Oh yeah,
Grandmaster Flash from the
Grandmaster
Furious
Flash.
Five. So that's like a good, you know,
Yeah, that probably would be like one of the first ones, wouldn't it?
that the first one I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing there's probably some, and there's probably like verses or lines here and there, but that I can think of, that's the earliest like song that is all has a message basically,
Yeah,
like the title says. So
because even even the open line was it was like broken glass everywhere, people
yeah,
pissing in on the stairs or something like that. So yeah,
and technically you could actually consider it's also one of the first skits, is because at the end they're like on the street corner and the police roll up and arrest them. So that was
yeah,
kind of like
yep.
the one of the original skits, but it also was kind of making a commentary about, you can't just hang out
Yeah,
without getting
just
arrested in the cities and stuff. So
yes, indeed.
yeah. Um, so do you want to go into, or you want me to start with some of mine, or?
Well, yeah. Let me see what I can go into.
All right.
So I guess say for me, the political rap. Uh, I never really was in the political. Realm in general. So I'm not really a political person. I really don't pay too much attention to it. So a lot of stuff I don't know what's going on. Well, I need to. So I'm not giving myself an excuse. As far as like political rap, it's always been in the music, like you said, all the way from back into the late '80s,
Yeah.
mid to late '80s. So we do have those time periods where it keeps popping back up, even though it starts to fade. I guess you could say of coolness, it starts to fade out because pop rap starts to come
Yeah.
in and stuff like that. But we always have those
Kind
political
of
albums,
reactionary
or
type of
yeah,
tracks
yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll probably say for me, at least the top two that I can think of as political rap, and they're in different generations, is number one, and I'm not gonna put anything above this album, is Public Enemy. It taking a nation of millions to hold us back.
That was going to be my first one.
That's gonna be your first one too.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
As for political, that I think that has to be the number one album, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I can trace my current political standpoint directly.
Directly to that.
Yeah. Chuck D's like my political, like, godfather, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
because I still remember the day came home from school. I would have been 13, 14, and
Hmm.
I saw the video for Night of the Living Bassheads.
Oh, yep.
And we've talked about that before on this
Hmm.
on the podcast, and it was this pseudo kind of newscast, showing about what was going on in the
Yeah,
ghetto. I forgot to start our timer again.
yeah. That was one with MC Light, right?
Yeah, she plays the
The news reporter.
yeah.
I never watched that video though. I heard the song, but I never watched that
I
video.
don't know why it's not doing anything. Never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry, distracting. Yeah, it was an old. I just remembered it was like it would play part of the song and then it would cut back to MC Light broadcasting, and it just like really blew me away.
Hmm.
And then the next one, I don't know how long after that video, but would have been like Black Still Now or Chaos, which is the
Hmm.
got a letter from the government the other day, opened and read it, said they were suckers, they wanted me for the army or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole video was him basically getting broken out of prison. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I do remember watching it, and my dad was like, "Wow, these are some angry guys." So, but yeah, I mean, definitely that album, yeah, it's a classic. Depending on the day you ask me, this would be the best album ever recorded.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, as
Yeah.
for me, as political wise, that probably would be the album.
Yeah.
I would say because that one has Terminator X on it, right?
Yeah.
The song, not
Yeah.
the DJ, but I mean, of course, he's all over the album, but
Yeah, it's got Terminator X to that.
yeah,
Edge of Panic.
Bring the Noise.
Yeah.
Uh,
Don't believe the hype.
Don't Believe the Hype. Yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, basically, probably the greatest, one of the greatest songs ever recorded was Rebel Without a Pause.
yeah. Oh yeah, Rebel Without a Pause,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
high pitch that
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think I've talked about this before too on here about he had a line in there about supporter of Chesamard,
yeah,
and
he
that
did.
like triggered me at the time because I had no idea who she was, and it turned out to be Asada Shakur. So the album was a trigger for me to learn and kind of see things that were going on and kind of open my eyes a little
Dude,
bit more to what the world was
yeah.
than kind of what, you know, growing up in white suburbia. I had a different outlook than what that, and so it kind of opened my eyes and gave me a chance to really think about things. And
And see things from a different perspective
yeah,
and stuff.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
yeah, as for that album, yeah, that's probably yeah number one. You
and
got
I'll
another one?
go. I was gonna go along with these just two other absolute
Fear the
classics:
Black
"Fear of a
Panda.
Black Planet" and then "Apocalypse '91." So this one, the best song. It's one of my favorite songs by them. Well, actually, two I would say is "Can't Trust It," which was,
Mm-hmm.
I just remember the video and stuff like in the slave masters and things like that in the ship. It opens up with like a little news piece about slave ships and how many people were brought over.
Yeah.
And then the other one, and I think you've mentioned this one before too, is "By the Time I Get to Arizona,"
Yes. By the time I get to Arizona.
which is, I mean, that's the epitome of a political type song, especially when you see the video where they're actually, reenacting an assassination attempt on the governor of Arizona.
Yep.
So
And then they had the governor of Arizona at the beginning of the song
I
too.
think, yeah, where he's
The
talking about not having,
Martin Luther King Day
yeah,
as a holiday at that
yeah.
state. Yeah.
So, um, and then "Fear of a Black Planet," um, I go back and forth with "Takes a Nation of Millions" on these two as far as
Oh
which is
yeah.
my favorite. I mean, that typically wins out, but I mean, um, like, I'm drawing "Welcome to the Terror" is
Oh yeah.
one of my favorite songs. "Burn Hollywood Burn," which had Big Daddy Kane and Ice Cube on it, which was really cool to kind of talking about, you know,
Like the Hollywood.
yeah, like
Yeah.
forecasting effort on the
Yeah.
part of Hollywood. Um, and then just songs like "Fear of a Black Planet," and it talks about, it's like the chorus part is like this kind of robotic voice, and it's like white mom, white dad, white baby, white mom, black dad, black baby, black dad, white mom,
Yeah.
black baby. Like, and it just kind of talked about how even if you had a little bit of, history of or genetics of, being black, then you were black and
Yeah.
treated as such, which,
There was no doubt about it. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Black jeans are strong, man.
yeah. And then, the all-time classic Flavor Flav song, "911 is a Joke,"
Now I
which,
want one is a
again,
joke.
I mean, it's a funny song, but it is
Hmm.
very much a political song because it's talking about the lack of response from,
Yeah.
in inner cities and stuff. So, yeah.
Which that is a big
So,
problem. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad you started with them because that is, to me, like the epitome of what,
Political rap
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, they had to be probably number one in that
yeah,
lane of this rap of the
yeah.
sub, I guess, genre.
Especially like, maybe not the most political, but the most well-known, because I think
Yeah.
there's some other more independent that might be a little more, maybe
Political.
not. I mean, it's hard to get much more than Chuck D. So,
That's what I'm saying. Because it's like
yeah,
every time when I think of Chuck D off
it's
the
all,
top, yeah,
yeah,
it's like yeah,
yeah, because he,
going against the government.
he rarely has anything that's not political. He did do an album recently,
Hmm.
celebrating baseball,
Really?
and it was, I think, "Re-Rock Stadiums," I believe is the name of it, and every song was kind of like talking. So that was kind of a cool departure, and it's actually a pretty good album. So I
Okay.
think it's within the last 2 3 years, maybe, yeah, like 2 3 years probably that he dropped that
Oh,
album,
okay.
because he's done a few
Fairly
things on
new.
his own, like either as Chuck D or Mr. Chuck.
Yeah.
He's got a few albums on his own, and most of them are just in the same vein as Public Enemy, but that one was a little different because it was just kind of a celebration of, and I mean, it was political in a sense because it did talk about, the Black Leagues, African American leagues, and stuff
Okay.
like that. So yeah, even when he's not being political, he's
He's
still
still
being
being
political.
political,
Yeah. So
like Negro Leagues and stuff like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
that's what I was trying to think of, the word
yeah.
what they call them. So yeah, sorry. Um, you said you had another one that was
Yeah,
a
oh yeah,
different time frame.
from the closer to this generation, of course it has to be Kendrick Lamar's "To Pimp a Butterfly," and that would probably be my second, I guess, one off the political rap albums of all time. It'd be those. It'd be "Take a Nation, a Million to Hold Us Back," and then "To Pimp a Butterfly." And
I've listened to that album, but I'm not a expert on it in any way. So what makes it a political album?
because what Kendrick is doing with that album, he's pretty much trying to put you in the eyes of an entertainer through the, I guess, through the government in a way.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like how can I say? Because okay, like so it opens up with a song called Wesley, I think Snipes or Wesley's Theory. My bad, there we go,
Okay.
Wesley's Theory, and it's extremely funky, uh, like it's funked out the bass, and pretty much talking about like how he's this. It's a character named Lucy, which is Lucifer,
Okay.
and he's kind of can give you as a black man in America, you're not going through the educational system or nothing like that to get $1 million, but I can, you want a house, you want a car, for the acres
Okay.
and a mule, a piano, a guitar. That's what he said. I can get you anything. So my name is Lucy. I'm your dog.
Oh, when he talks about playing the guitar, it's kind of like an old reference to Robert Johnson and the Crossroads
I'm not
story.
sure if that's the exact reference, but he could
Okay.
be referencing that.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, that's what I kind of took away from it. And through the
Okay.
album, of course, he deals with his own personal issues through the album. But then you get songs after that, which is called like For Free, and pretty much it's talking about, well, in a sense, it's what's going on in that song is it's a woman that starts it off, and she's like, doing what I guess you could say women do when they uh aren't really feeling you like that. She's going off on them, and she's just like, you didn't even buy me this 28 wavy eight pretty much hair and stuff like that, and you ain't doing this for me, you ain't doing that. And then he turns around and he's like, this, if y'all know the song, y'all know what he's saying. This ain't free. And he just goes into all these spills, and then it's no one Kendrick. He has these like double entendres
Right.
with these things. Uh, and then we early on in that album too, we get songs like King Kunta,
Hmm.
which where he's talking about being black in America,
Okay.
and
So it's basically it's not necessarily overtly like political album, but it's
yeah,
like the politics of being
yeah, it's like
black in
the policy,
America.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
about being like an entertainer,
Okay.
and
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, in a
Okay.
way like that, and it's very refreshing. And through the album, he has a poem that you get closer and closer to the end every couple songs.
Okay.
He'll say the poem, and after a song goes off, oh, and then also oh god, they had Black of the Berry on there, which is that one was really heavy because that was a more it was more on a reflection of us as a culture,
Okay.
pretty much saying that we are hypocrites as well. And he was, I think the last bar of that song was dang, what would he say? Why did why did I weep when Trayvon Martin was in the street when gang banging made me kill a nigga blacker than me? Hypocrite. That's what he said.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
That's one of those albums that I really need to. I've listened to it and I have it. I've got it on vinyl and everything, but I need to go back and dig into it more and just listen to it with most of his catalog. But
yeah. He's
yeah,
definitely a deep thinker, and it's
yeah,
yeah, through that album, it's, I would say, yeah, it's political because it's entertaining, it's fun, it's it gets you moving, but it also has those moments where the overall theme moment where he is talking about something serious, like with the
okay,
song "All Right" on there, which that was like one of his biggest hits from that album, was "We Gonna Be All Right," which
yeah,
talk about the whole police brutality and stuff like that as well. And yeah, he kind of try to hit like every little corner of,
okay,
I guess, I don't want to say political realm, but yeah, in the political sense and the cultural sense and stuff like that, you get it all these each of these pockets and stuff like that. So yeah, that'd be my second favorite one.
all right.
I do have another one, but I'm not considered if it's actually political, but I feel like it is in a way.
Well, I was thinking about it because there's a lot of albums that aren't necessarily political,
Hmm.
but they're very like social, like very socially aware, conscious.
Yeah.
So I don't. I mean, like I look at somebody like Common, he's a conscious rapper, but I don't necessarily think he's a political rapper.
Okay,
You know, but
okay.
he
I
does
see what you're
talk
saying now.
consciousness.
Yeah,
Even like
okay,
with De La
yeah,
Soul, because De La Soul's never really overtly like, you know, political in nature or revolutionary or something, whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
But they're very socially aware and socially conscious, and they talk
Exactly.
about important things.
Yeah,
So it, so when I think of political, I'm trying to think more of like, you know, like Public
yeah.
Enemy. That's very straightforward. Which brings me to my one of my next ones, and that would be X Clan.
X Clan.
Yeah,
I haven't listened to X
this
Clan.
is one that I've been meaning to tell you to listen to. They got Pinky on the cover, the Cadillac,
Uh
which,
huh.
anything with a pink Cadillac has got to be great. Um, Brother J to me is one of the best voices in all of hip hop.
Oh,
His
really?
his flow and the voice is one of the smoothest of all time.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it just flows. And then you've got Professor X, who always opens the songs and he's calling like sissies and vainglorious and just these crazy like opening intros, and then Brother
Yeah.
J just goes into, and this one probably might be more socially or conscious as opposed to overtly political, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a very much um, pro-black album, I guess you would say.
Okay.
I mean, you can see the pictures of them on the back. They were all very much
Oh,
in that
yeah.
African garb. Garbs kind of sounds crude, like African,
Dashikis and stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and onks and things like that. And I believe Professor X, um, his father was Sonny Carson, who was a prominent civil rights activist
Oh,
in
okay.
New York. I think that's his name. And his real name is Lumumba Carson, which he was named after Patrice Lumumba, who was, I can't think of the country off the top of my head, but he was a president of a country in Africa
Okay.
that was assassinated by the CIA.
Oh,
And I mean, that's not even a conspiracy theory. The CIA killed him.
thought it was just flat out.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any like question that it was the CIA. It was the
Yeah,
CIA.
it was the
They killed him.
CIA.
So, so they were very much they had the Black Watch movement. So
Mm-hmm.
they're very political
Mm.
organization, grassroots type of organization.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, you definitely this
Check out X Clan.
and the album is all funk
Oh,
beats.
I love
Yeah, I
funk.
mean
Yeah.
it's and he thought because his brother Jerry was the DJ,
Uh huh.
and so he knew what got the crowd moving. So he was taking the beats of the prominent like funk songs that got
Mm-hmm.
people on a dance floor and looped them and turned them.
Oh,
It's an album that couldn't
okay.
be made today because the sampling would be,
Oh, yeah, be
yeah, which is
crazy.
probably
Yeah.
why it hasn't been reissued that I'm aware of. So, and it needs to be, because it's actually in it.
So with this album cover though, right?
Yeah.
Is this all the people in there, or is it like
No, it's
just
just the four of them. It was Brother
okay?
J, Sugar Shaft was their DJ, Lamumba, or Professor X, and then Paradise, I think. Paradise might have been the DJ, like Paradise and Sugar Shaft. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember off the top of my head. But yeah, the cover has a bunch of, like, it has the four main members in each corner, but then it's got, like, um, actually, I think that's Patrice Lumumba there, and then, um, I'm drawing blanks on names. So you got Martin Luther King,
Oh, okay, okay.
Malcolm X, um,
Got some important figures on top of
yeah,
the cover
and there's
too.
other people here that I should recognize. Um, and then I'm drawing blanks on names. My
I was about to say I thought they were deeper than Wu Tang. I was like,
No, it's one of those that has like everything, like a bunch of basic people that influenced them a lot. So, Harriet Tubman,
oh yeah,
um,
right at the bottom.
and yeah, like I know I recognize a few others, but
Well, that's cool, man. That
yeah,
is cool to have your influences or your
yeah, but yeah, you should definitely
people.
check that one out. And then they had a second album. I know I have it on vinyl here somewhere too. I forgot to pull it out, but it was pretty good. It not quite as,
Good as this one?
yeah. I mean, like this is like an A plus, and that one would be like an A. I mean,
Ah,
it's
okay,
close.
gotcha.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's not like it was a deep. I mean, it had a little less funkier sound. It was still very funk oriented, but
yeah.
not as a beat type beats, I guess. But it was still an excellent. Fire and Earth, I think or Fire and Ice was Fire and Earth. Fire and something, Ice or Earth, I can't remember, was the first single. But yeah, definitely a good album. Yeah, and I would definitely,
Check it out.
yeah, you should listen to that. It's called
Well,
The
what's
East Blackwards.
the East Blackwards?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, because I
yeah,
only see X Clan on this
yeah.
bad.
You can kind of see it down here. It's like,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he's black.
um, the next one I was gonna go with, if you want, unless you wanted.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just
All right.
do a little intertwine in this one. Uh, I was gonna go with Straight Outta Compton, just for the time it was. I guess that was like the first.
Yeah.
With F the Police. Now, like you said, I don't, now that you said that, it's kind of like it's more conscious
I
than political.
I don't know. I mean, I do kind of think of that as a political album. I had thought about that one too. I forgot to pull that one out, but I mean, particularly with Death to Police. Like, I mean, that was such a
Yeah.
I mean, we're coming out. I mean, we're in the Bush era, like first Bush era, coming out of the Reagan era. So it's very the country is very conservative.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you got these guys running around looking like gangsters talking about F the police, this, and
Yeah.
you know, songs like Straight Outta Compton talking about everything that's going on there. I mean, the album was more of a gangster rap album, but even in that sense, it was a groundbreaking and a political statement. In that sense, it was like we're not just doing, you know,
Yeah. Just
classic hip hop. We are angry.
and we
We
ready to
come from a
rebel. Yeah.
violent world,
Hmm.
and we're going to show the world what we are. You know,
And they have the whole, I guess, situation with the government.
yeah, where they
Them.
got the FBI
Yeah.
investigating
So
them, and
we
yeah, I
had.
think they might have even been arrested at one point.
Yeah, they
Um,
did. Yeah,
which
for a concert or something like
Yeah,
that.
which reminds me, you wouldn't call them political music in any sense, but Two Life Crew, they were political in the sense that they challenged the system and they did get arrested. And
Yeah.
then they did have one political song, which would be "Born in the USA," which was a direct answer to
Okay.
being arrested for the obscenity and the freedom of speech fight that they went through. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you can consider
Two
them
Live Crew.
politically active, but they weren't. They were definitely
Okay.
not a political group.
Yeah.
But I mean, because they did really challenge things, and you know,
They just wanted the right to be freaky. That's what.
yeah,
That's what it
yeah, they were
was.
just doing their thing, and they ended up, and instead of giving up though and kind of walking away, they fought it, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm saying that it was a political act in that sense that they could have just walked away and still probably made PG-13 records instead of R-rated records.
Yeah. But I'm glad they
Yeah,
stuck with it
yeah,
because even though it kind of it just helps the further next generation to have more freedom of speech
yeah,
and accept the things that they didn't accept back then.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, but no, I think NWA was a good call on that one too. Mainly for that song, the Please. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of go in chronological order. So the next one I pulled out was Paris,
Paris.
which I
The
mentioned
devil
to
made
you.
me do it.
Yeah,
That's what it says.
that was his first album. So he came out. He was actually signed to Tommy Boy, which was the same label that brought us um, De La Soul. And they put out this album called "The Devil Made Me Do It," and that was the first single. Was "The Devil Made Me Do It."
Okay.
But the album is very much rooted in like Black Panther um, and Nation of Islam. I believe he was a member of the Nation of Islam. May still be. But there's songs like "Break the Grip of Shame," which talking about basically breaking free of like the history of being black in America,
Oh,
like
okay.
accepting who you are, and something about "Devil Made Me Do It," which is I believe there might have been a book called that was about referencing, and in this case, the devil is referencing white people. So
Ah.
yeah, that's where it becomes. But then there's songs like They Hate Me" that basically says, it's kind of talking about, we hate you because you've hated us our whole, from an African American point of view, like
Yeah.
you've treated us and hated us. So that's
Now
why
we
we hate
hate
you back.
you.
Because, the Nation of Islam was labeled as a hate, anti-white hate, this
Yeah.
evil, angry. And it was like, we have a right to be angry. In fact, because he uses a lot of um, clips from speeches, you
Like
know,
from like
from
Farrakhan or something like that.
him. Lots of civil rights, and I can't remember off the top of my head the names of them. I'm sure, I don't know if he had a Farrakhan on it, but I'm sure there's a Malcolm X one here and there.
Okay.
There's um, probably Stokely Carmichael. Um, yeah, but this was such a good album. Yeah, and I remember some of my white friends always kind of looked at me like,
When you used to
that's,
play
yeah.
it. Oh
And I'm
man.
like, yeah. And Sage Francis, one of the greatest rappers in my opinion, white rappers. He has a line and says something about the irony of rapping pro black, rapping pro black lines over the devil made me do it, like kind of as a white kid,
Oh,
like
okay, yeah.
yeah. So it's like the irony of that, like I'm this white kid rapping these verses over a beat that's talking about how white people are bad.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
a major big irony.
Um, his next album was one called Sleeping with the Enemy. And if you can see the cover here, it's got George Bush Sr. and it's got Paris hiding behind a tree with a gun.
Oh
So,
snap! Yeah.
um, as I mentioned, he was on Tommy Boy. And then this was right around the time that I believe Cop Killer from Ice-T came out
Oh.
and created a stir. You had the NWA stuff we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to say Almighty RSO, which was Boston, not a very good, not very great in my opinion. They had pretty decent following, but they released a song called "One in the Chamber," and that basically was I always keep one in the chamber for a cop, you know,
Yeah.
kind of watching out. And because of that climate, and then he puts an album out. He turns an album into Tommy Boy, that starts off with a skit of them assassinating the president.
Damn, right off the
And
top, huh?
yeah, so
Right off the top.
basically they were like, "Nope, you're done. You're off, Tommy Boy." So he um, created his own label called Gorilla Funk,
Mm-hmm.
and put out "Sleeping with the Enemy." And the big single was "Bush Killer," which was basically reenacting the cover there. So talking about killing President Bush.
Wow.
But it also has "Sleeping with the Enemy," kind of about being in the same country with the people that hate you.
Yeah.
Um, "Long Hot Summer," which was about I think some of the killings in New York and stuff, if I remember
Okay.
right. But then there was one on here called Coffee, Donuts, and Death, and
Coffee, donuts, and
but I
death.
believe it is based on a true story. But it starts out with a skit. You know, the beat starts up and it's this old funk beat. It's actually a really good beat.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a knock on the door and this a woman opens and she's like, "Who is it?" And it's all, "Can we come in, ma'am? We're the police." And she's like, "I'm not dressed for that." And they're like, "It's okay. We're the police." And basically they end up in, and then the next 30 seconds of the song is her getting raped, and you hear it on the,
Wow.
and then that's what the song is about. And I believe it was a true story of a woman in Oakland. He is Bay Area, Oakland, Arlish. I don't know if he's San Francisco or Oakland, but Bay Area basically.
Okay.
But I believe it was a true story of an Oakland woman who was raped by police officers in her
Jesus.
house. So yeah, definitely very much the political. He actually did an album with Public Enemy
Oh
where
yeah.
he produced it and wrote all their lyrics and everything, but they rapped it and everything. It's
Okay.
called "Birth of a Nation," which is a reference to a silent movie by D.W. Griffin, which is considered a cinematic classic in the sense that he created techniques that had never been used in like the way to film things.
Yeah.
But it is an incredibly racist film. The whole gist of it is, after the Civil War and blacks are getting into Congress and Senate,
Uh huh.
the Klan rides in to save the day. And that's like it's this hero story where the Klan comes in and basically gets rid of all the black people that are causing trouble.
Dang.
So incredibly, incredibly racist film, but it's also considered the cinematic. I took a film school in a film class, history of film in college.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, I mentioned this maybe to you before, but my teacher was the actor that played Harpo in Color Purple.
Yeah.
Really cool guy,
Uh-huh.
and it was really cool to like actually have an actor. But he had us watch that movie, and you know, he had plenty to say about the movie. But it was both. It was like this is just a horribly racist film, but
Yeah.
we have to watch it because he did invent things that led to advancements in cinema. So, but that's what that album was named after. But
Okay. That's a conundrum then, right?
yeah, that's so. Um, yeah, yeah, it's one of those that you should watch just to be in disbelief. Like, I can't believe this guy actually made this movie.
Jesus.
He's put out several albums. I think he actually had one coming out right around 9/11 that got pushed back because,
Of 9/11.
yeah, I can't remember exactly why, but his most recent one, which would have been 2020, so he put it out
Okay,
about
about
4 years
5 years.
ago, was "Say Space Invaders," and it was a pretty good song. He had a lot of, or album. Um, on the thing you can see a lot of stuff like anti-Bush stuff. It's got Bush with bleeding eyes and Putin with bleeding eyes. It's got
Trump on there.
yeah, Trump. It's got a bunch of different people like, so again, he's still very politically active.
So I was gonna say with the sleeping with the enemy one,
Hmm.
right? You said he got kicked off his label
Yeah, and then
for.
that's when he started his own and put it out there. So
So he already had the album already ready
that's my
to go.
understanding. This is 30 years ago, so my memory.
Yeah, I know.
And
I get
I
a little
mean, I was
hazy.
just a
Yeah,
teenager at that time, and it's just what I vaguely recall
yeah,
reading. But I do know it did get, particularly because of the song Bush Killer, it did not sit well with record executives.
yeah. Now
Yeah.
with the record label Tommy Boy,
Hmm.
because when you say that they bring us De La Soul, that's kind of a way different from
Yeah, I mean, at the time, and I want to say even that Almighty RSO was on Tommy Boy maybe too, but they were pretty. They had a good mix of stuff. It
Oh,
wasn't
okay, okay.
just because yeah, there wasn't a label that was founded for De La Soul. It just happened they had done some stuff with Stetsasonic, and that's where Prince Paul was the DJ from, and
Yeah.
so it was through that's how they got signed to Tommy Boy.
Okay.
But yeah, it was. And I don't know too much of the history of it, but they did have a lot of good acts, and I'd have to look up. I can't remember much off the top of my head anymore, but they did have a wide variety of stuff that came out on Tommy Boy. So I mean, it's cool that they did take a chance with an unknown West Coast artist that was making such a statement because that Devil Made Me Do It's a pretty powerful album. I mean,
Yeah,
so
it's
yeah,
pretty heavy, huh?
yeah, and I mean, I still particularly Devil Made Me Do It and Break the Grip of Shame. I listen to those songs probably once a week still to this day because they're just great songs.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out
Yeah.
too.
So yeah, I would definitely check those out. Um, and like I said, his label's still going. He had a couple different, pretty much very political type stuff.
Hmm.
Conscious Daughters were on there. Um, he put out those Public Enemy records, and there was a few others. I don't think they're actively putting out new music, but I think you can still, I think you can buy because they actually did a reissue within the last 4 or 5 years of those albums. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so they're still somewhat active. Yeah. On another note, that just Bay Area, and then I also mentioned 9/11.
Hmm.
There's a group called The Coup, which I have a couple of their albums, but I forgot to pull those out. But they had an album called World Party that was scheduled to be released right around 9/11. And this was before 9/11.
Yeah.
The original album cover was a plane crashing into the Twin Towers.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Really?
yeah. And it was more of a reference because Bin Laden had tried to blow up the towers a few years earlier,
Okay.
and then the World Trade because I'm pretty sure Boots Riley I think he considers him a communist.
Yeah.
You know, very much a pro-black commun. Kind of in the Black Panther range,
Hmm.
especially from Oakland. I mean, that's very much common in that area. So he was addressing world trade because world trade is a big problem in the world. I mean, that causes a lot of poverty and a lot of
Oh, really?
corruption and, you know,
Yeah,
just
because
in general. So,
even in there's a line that Biggie Smalls got,
mhm.
or Notorious B.I.G. I could say. Don't want to get him sued again. No, no, RP. But no, Big had a line. I forgot what song exactly it was, but he said go on something blow up like the World Trade War Center, something. And I'm thinking like, okay, Big died in '97. That World
If it
Trade didn't.
was
I mean, the Twin
two,
Towers didn't happen to 2001.
yeah.
So I didn't know that there
But
was a.
yeah, I don't remember what year, because I think they had parked a van in the bottom of the World Trade Center,
Uh-huh.
and it went off, but it didn't do the damage they expected, if I remember right. Oh, damn it, I keep pulling those out. Um, so that's probably what it was a reference to,
Gotcha.
and then
Yeah.
I think that also kind of led to, but I just thought it was funny that his was Twin Towers with a plane.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So that's a
That
little bit
was
of
some
foreshadowing right
crazy
there. So
premonition, some
yeah,
Final Destination type level.
yeah,
The
and I don't,
signs was there. Right?
I don't know if it was supposed to even come out on that day because that happened on a Tuesday, and at that time, Tuesday was album release day
Ooh.
back then. Up until late 2000, probably sometime in 2010,
Mm-hmm.
2015 is when they moved them to Fridays.
Fridays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so up until the early 2000s, at least, they were being released on Tuesdays, and so it might have been planned to be released that day, but yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that is some scary
yeah, I would definitely,
stuff right
that's
there.
another group that I would check out, though, is the Coup. Like if you're interested in political hip hop,
Uh-huh.
particularly with a good kind of funky Oakland vibe.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about Oakland sound. Like it definitely has its own sound.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They have
Yeah,
a
its
really
own
good album.
bounce.
Yeah, it does. It's got a good funk to it. They've got an album called Still This Album, and that's a reference to an old book by Abby Hoffman called Still This Book that was kind of a hippie, like,
Ah,
kind of that vibe of like, yeah, just still this. I'm not
you
trying to
you
make
know
money
what?
on this.
I never heard it, but I heard of that album. I heard of that.
Okay.
There's still this album, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess yeah, I heard it in the political realm. I never checked it out though,
Okay.
but
It's a really, there's one song on there. It's called Me and Jesus the Pimp in a 79 Granada last night. And from what I understand, the title is a reference to the U.S. invasion of Grenada. So there's a
okay.
political, but the song itself is basically this really crazy story about like, um, so it's like he's talking about hate Jesus the pimp and his mom, and it basically turns out Jesus is his dad, and the mom is like one of his prostitutes,
Yeah.
and then things happen, and then basically he kills the mom. Jesus the pimp kills the mom, and then goes to prison for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kid goes and when he gets out, he picks him up from prison, and he's like, yeah, you taught me everything I knew. You're my dad, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then the very end of the song, he shoots his dad. He's like, yeah,
Wow.
I'll never forget you killing my mom, type of thing. And
Yeah.
so it's actually, but I just thought it was interesting that the title itself was a reference to the invasion of Grenada. So he did very much everything he did was very. There was kind of a double entendre kind of to it, like or
Yeah.
double meaning to it. And he's gone on to direct some stuff. He did um, a few movies that have been, and I'm trying to think of the names of them that have done fairly well. Um, yeah, I'm not but he also did. He was in a group called Street Sweeper Social Club with
Street
Tom
sweeper.
Morello, who's the guitarist from Rage Against the Machine. So
Okay.
again, it was this political rap rock kind of, but more
Yeah.
of a funkier kind of more of a radio vibe as opposed to Rage Against the Machine. But it was still
Okay.
very much a political. So yeah, that like if you're want to listen to some good political or socially conscious.
Still, this album
Yeah,
is
any of their albums. Kill
okay.
the Landlord, I think, was their first one, and
These
then
name
yeah.
titles is wild.
So, did you have another one, or do you want me to keep going
uh,
here?
Not anyone I could think of off the top of my dome right now.
All right, I'm gonna jump to this one. It's primarily for the first song, which is more of a skit, and it's "Iceberg" by Ice-T.
Iceberg by Ice T.
Yeah, has probably one of my favorite Ice-T songs on there called "The Hunted Child," which is a really cool song.
Okay.
But the one I was thinking of was the title opening track was called "Shut Up, Be Happy."
Shut up, be happy.
Yeah, and he's actually not on it. It's a loop of the Black Sabbath song, the Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath that starts out with the rain and then the guitar loop,
Okay.
and then there's like horns, and then it's got Jello Biafra, who's the singer from a punk band called Dead Kennedys, which if you want political music, you can't go wrong with Dead Kennedys. They're one of the greatest.
Hmm.
Um, but he's basically talking like a totalitarian government, like, curfew's on, anybody outside without the curfew will be
Okay.
shot. And
Yeah.
so it was just basically this kind of state of this is where America is kind of in this totalitarian fascist regime. So that
Okay.
song very much, depending on your point of view, might be very relevant these days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even though it's just a little skit, like, and there's no rapping on it, I still listen to it sometimes just because it's got a cool, the tone of it too is just because that Black Sabbath loop is so dope, and then the
Uh huh.
the bells and the siren and stuff, it just has a really cool
Yeah. It
sound.
has its own feel to it that you
Yeah.
just it's infectious.
Uh, you're probably familiar with Dead Prez. Hip hop
I
is their was their
Yeah. It's a hip.
yeah.
Hip. Yeah.
Um,
I haven't. I mean, I haven't heard any of their albums.
okay, it's a pretty good album. One that I definitely should listen to more, but again, just a very political album. But it was also, I think, more like because sometimes with Public Enemy, people say it's not necessarily an inviting album because it's loud and angry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
This
very
one kind of fit more into the hip hop realm, like more
okay.
kind of straightforward beats and stuff like that. But that song's like Police State, We Want Freedom,
Let's get free.
yeah, Let's Get Free, Assassination. Um, and they had a second album called Revolutionary but Gangster, which I have, but I don't know too much on. I haven't listened to it
Oh
in a
yeah.
long time. So, but yeah, they definitely, and even the cover alone. I mean, you got it's like from the African Revolution or something like that. I believe a
Oh
bunch of
damn.
guys with guns in the air.
Yeah, I was like, I see some AKs in
Yeah,
this bad boy.
so very much presented in that that realm. Um, I'm gonna swap it up a little bit. This is a guy named Shingo Two, who's a Japanese.
Shingo.
Yeah, and this is a song called Pearl Harbor, and it's a Japanese song, so it takes the kamikaze's flight in Pearl Harbor and tells it from the pilot's point of view. So again, I don't know if this
Heavy.
is yeah, it's political in that sense that it's something, and I'm not sure if Shingo Two is Japanese, like from Japan, or if he's American. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know a lot about him, but
Yeah.
pretty cool stuff. That's actually a really cool song. I think he raps in Japanese, but I think there's also an English version.
Oh, that he raps in as well.
Yeah. I'm just running through a bunch of
Oh yeah,
these.
go ahead. Do
Jump
you
in
that?
whenever you want.
Hmm.
This is a guy, and I think I actually recommended this album a week or two ago. It's
You
by
did.
Off White, "Bow to the Scepter." And that song itself, "Bow to the Scepter," was a response to George Bush too, um, his presidency, and just basically them wanting to be kings and
Yeah.
telling you to bow to him. So
Actually, I was looking for that album.
I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if it's
forgot. I forgot
on.
the
Oh,
name.
okay,
Well, I forgot the name of the whole everything. I
okay.
was like, what was the artist name? I was like, what was the album name? I was like, oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, he's actually I like a lot. I don't think he's an overly political rapper, but I think he'd be conscious. He came out of Chicago, with the Galapagos Four crew,
Okay.
and their music is all it's in that underground mid late '90s, early 2000s underground kind of vibe,
Yeah.
but just really good stuff. So, um, the next one I'm gonna pull up is Dalek or Dalek.
Dialect.
Yeah, it's spelled Dalek. It's a reference to Doctor Who, the evil robots in Doctor Who.
Okay. I
But
never
it's
seen Doctor
also
Who, but
I never really watched it either. My brother was a fan of him. It's a little too British and weird for me. Um, very heavy political. This is a very industrial kind of sound. Um,
okay.
the rapper Dialect, he's very much influenced by a band called My Bloody Valentine, which was what they call shoegaze metal, which is basically just heavy guitars where the guy stood there and just stared at his shoes while he's playing. That's where they get the name shoegaze.
Really?
Yeah, but it's just kind of heavier, and so his sound has this distortion guitar feedback.
Okay.
And the first one I came across from him was an album called "From the Filthy Tongues of Gods and Griots." One of the songs, and I think it wasn't necessarily on the original, but it came out on the reissue, was one called "41 Shots," and that was a reference to the guy that got shot 41 times in New York by the police, and I can't think of his name. Like, I think he got shot through his apartment door, if I remember right.
Dang, I don't remember about this one.
Yeah,
That was,
I think that's
dang.
what it is. But like this one is more, maybe probably more a little social awareness, but there's stuff like anti-Christos, so it's kind of anti-religion,
Yeah.
things like that. The second one I pulled up on him was an album called Gutter Tactics, and the reason I pulled it up is just, and it's more of an intro, and it's a song called "Blessed Are They Who Bashed Your Children's Head Against a Rock," and it's actually a piece from a sermon by um, the Reverend Wright, I believe is his last name, and I can't think of his first name, but he's a Chicago, I believe, black reverend who very um, I don't know what the right word is, like political in nature.
Okay.
Um, and that sermon he's referencing um, a line from Malcolm X about the roosters coming home or the chickens coming home to roost
Mm-hmm.
in response to us attacking all these other countries and people coming back on us.
Yeah.
Um,
For retaliation.
yeah, so that was why I grabbed that one. So um, I would definitely a heavier sound if you're into the more noise or kind of grinding, um, but excellent lyrics and very much a message to it. I would check out. They've got 6 albums, I think. Some really good stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. Um,
Dialect.
the next one is probably the most political. This is one you could kind of go back and forth between him and Public Enemy as far as who's the most political.
Oh, who we
And
got?
that would be Immortal Technique. And I've got
Oh yeah.
Revolutionary Volume 1 and Volume 2. Um, yeah, I mean, it's everything on here. The one song that probably most people know is Dance with the Devil, which is more of a social kind of commentary on
Yeah, messed
gang
up song.
violence
Hmm.
and just, yeah, what evil men are capable of doing.
Yeah.
Um, but it's got there's other songs that talk about. like um, poverty, speaking your mind, just different things, like just kind of very much trying to think of the right words, but um, just kind of a revolutionary mindset and
Uh huh.
fighting against
The
things.
system and stuff like that.
Yeah. Um, and then the Revolution Volume 2 was the one that I probably listened to more. There's a song like Freedom of Speech, which basically talks about he can say what he wants. He's not held down by sponsors. It's actually kind of funny because it uses a sample from, I think it might be Pinocchio, and it's where the kids turn into donkeys, but the kids like singing like, nobody can pull my strings and stuff like
Oh
that. So
yeah.
like
Uh
about
huh.
puppets. And then songs like The Message and the Money, Industrial Revolution. Um, I'm trying to think of maybe it's not on these albums. There's one that he has, and I'm drawing a blank. Um, but it talks about, it might be called the 1% maybe, but he's rapping kind of from the mouth of a billionaire and talking, basically, I can do whatever I want. You
Hmm.
gangsters think you're cool, but I've got, more money than you guys will ever have. I've
Yeah.
got buildings. I've got buildings for every one of my kids. And if I get in trouble, I'm going to prison, but it's white collar and I'll be out still making money. So it's basically
Man, that's the
so
truth right there, though.
yeah, I thought it was on this one, but I can't remember off the top. It might be off of Middle Passage or one of his other albums. But again, I mean, the cover has, the hammer and sickle, which actually a microphone and a sickle, which is a reference to the communist flag of the USSR.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then the cover is just a bunch of police shot.
Shot
So
dead.
yeah. Um, anything you want me to keep going? I got two more over
Uh,
here, I think, or three more.
well,
Two
I would
more.
say, if we're gonna try to, I mean, tote that line political and stuff, the Luca, the permanently blackface, yeah,
That
permanently
was gonna be my
blackface.
last one, so go for it. I'll
Uh,
even let you hold
yeah, here you
it.
go. Permanently blackface. Now, when I listened to this the first time, it was,
It's such a heavy album.
yeah, I mean, heavy wasn't even a word, man. Like it weighed
Yeah.
on you for a little bit, and just
It was like when I was like a teenager and I watched Roots for the first
yeah,
time.
right, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you're just like, oh, like it
yeah.
just takes everything out of you.
Yeah, man. When
But
you
it's
get when
so
you
good.
get done with this, man, you definitely just like you need a break from like music.
Yeah.
Just need to sit there and take it all in. When it starts off with the samples of I guess somebody tap dancing or something like
It's
that.
like an old like the old TV shows, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Blackface.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Pretty much like the cover. It
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
a white guy in blackface,
The old, what they call them, like Step and Fetch It or something like that. I think
something
was the
like that.
old like Amos and Andy type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah. But with that, when you go through this album and it just keeps getting like more into the social rounds of being black in America. Like he has one song on here called Spooks Blues,
Yeah.
where he's goes up to a older black gentleman and he's talking to him, and pretty much the guy named Spook is an Uncle Ruckus. That's what I can say. And he's an Uncle Ruckus. Because by the end of the song, he's pretty much saying he realized that he was talking to a blackface in blackface. So yeah,
That's funny.
there was some crazy concepts he had in here. Also, probably one of my favorites from this album is probably Blacks in Control.
Yeah.
Uh, Dope beat, and uh, just it's just a reversal of how the reversal of the races. So pretty
Yeah.
much, if blacks were in control and the whites were coming up through slavery, and going through like hip hop and stuff like that, and black people owning white people masters and that type of situation. He's like, he don't know if the the white population could handle
Mm.
being taken
Yeah.
advantage just the way how we've been taken advantage. So that was a cool one as well. And he has another one which I just love the beat is a child in iron collar or a child in iron collar or something like that. That the beat on that one I just love listening to it. So, but yeah, this album was yeah, I want to say it's political in a way
I
because
definitely would consider. I mean, the whole album from beginning to end is
yeah, just
political, social commentary.
yeah, he doesn't miss a beat either.
Yeah.
It's just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. It's like almost a perfect album. I mean, I think it's a perfect album.
It is, no,
Well,
it definitely is a perfect album.
and every song is good, but it is definitely better when you listen to it from front to back, like as a full thing.
Yeah,
The songs, that would be the only maybe criticism, is that you most of the songs aren't as good on their own.
yeah, you're right.
But
Yeah,
it's not that they're not good though; they're so good. But it just feels so much better when it's like
they're all
the whole
put
thing. But at the
together.
same time, it's an exhausting listen because you're like, wow, like
Yeah, because like it was
that's
like
tough.
one song on there with I think a colored night. I think that's what it's called,
Yeah,
and then it leads into I think a black man's worst fear.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, you gotta listen to those songs kind of like back to back,
yeah,
especially because you can't listen to a black man's worst fear without listening to a colored night. It just I don't know. I mean, you can, but it works a lot better if you just go in order with
yeah,
it. And I say he really tops it off with those samples he has in here. Like, well, one of those samples in one, I believe it's probably like towards the end of the album, but he has like those really racist uh samples where he has that I guess it's somebody in blackface at a like a theater show
yeah,
type of situation, and pretty much he has this white lady just kind of like making fun of
yeah,
the black man. It was some wild stuff. It was some wild stuff. So yeah, yeah, that definitely.
yeah,
Honestly, yeah, that should be on my list as well. Is
yeah. That was I knew I was gonna pull that one out, and that was kind of at the tail end of my. Um, I was gonna bring this one up too. This was Killer Mike.
okay.
His first album, Rap Music, which was produced by LP, who later on the two of them became Run the Jewels. But the main reason I put this on here was a song called Reagan, and it basically sums up everything I feel about Ronald Reagan, and especially the
Really?
final line that says, "I'm glad Reagan is dead." Because Reagan is was a terrible president and is very much the reason we are where we're at as a country with some of the things that he did.
Mm.
And it actually I like because it has these two quotes from Ronald Reagan, like actual quotes. And the first one is about the Iran Contra, and he says, we did not give money to the Iran to the Contras or whatever it is. He's like, we did not. And then his second line is, earlier I told you that um, we didn't do this, you know,
Yeah.
and then he's like, but I still believe with all my heart that it's not true, but we did give money to them. And I'm like, you just said you think it's not true, but it is true. Like I was so like,
Contradicting yourself.
yeah, but it is such, and I should have actually pulled out too in conjunction with that is the Run the Jewels record, particularly Run the Jewels 4. Um, and they have the song on there called Walking in the Snow.
Okay.
And that one was such a powerful song because the record came out within weeks of George Floyd's murder.
Mm.
But there's a song on that song, Walking in the Snow, that was recorded months before. There's a
Yeah.
line that Killer Mike says, and he says, you're on TV watching somebody like me saying, I can't breathe. And the first time I heard that, I actually was like, oh shit. Like it caught me so off guard. I was driving and I was
Yeah.
like, oh wow. Like, and I was thinking about it, I'm like, kind of counting the days. I'm like, there's no way he recorded this and put this on
Yeah.
the album since then.
Yeah.
And so it was such a powerful statement and to come out so close. And then, I mean, so much of that album there's another song in there that's with Pharrell on it and
For real.
Zach from Rage Against the Machine. And the chorus is something like, look at all the slave masters on my dollar. It's kind of talking about you're worshiping money, but it's all, they're all slave masters on there. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of that. So that would have been another actually good album to put on here. And one other album I did want to bring up, I don't have it on vinyl. It is probably one of my holy grails. I've seen it out there, but it's just been a little too much. But it's a group called the Goats.
The goats.
Yeah.
Okay.
They came out of Philly in early 90s, 92, 91, 92.
Yeah.
And the album was called Tricks of the Shade, I believe. And they were from Philly like the Roots, but they were like one of the first rap groups to actually have a band. So they were live,
Okay.
but they also had samples and stuff. They were very much kind of like the Roots, but
Yeah.
they were I think there was a white guy in the group and stuff. So it's kind of a mix, but
Mm-hmm.
the album was really political. Um, the some of the songs like lyrically aren't like great. They're kind of rudimentary lyrically. The beats are pretty good for that, very good representative like that 90s.
Okay.
But was
Time
great
period.
was the skits. Um,
Uh.
it's the whole thing centers around these two characters. I think it's I forget one of them's named Hangerhead, and he's basically called that because he was a botched abortion that lived, so he's got a hanger.
Ah. Okay.
Um, and the two of them are walking around Uncle Sam's federally funded freak show
Yeah.
looking for their mom. And as they approached, as they go to each like area in this carnival,
Yeah.
it's got like the Georgie Bush boys, and they're like these rich white kids selling cocaine. And then they have the Leonard
Dang.
Peltier in a cage, which I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a Native American, part of the American Indian movement, that was arrested and put in prison for shooting an FBI agent in the 60s, um, which more than likely he didn't do. But everything about his trial was rigged. He was
Mm-hmm.
illegally extradited from Canada, and then he spent the last 40 years in prison. And the one good thing that Biden did was he let him out of prison. He didn't pardon him, but he released him.
Wow.
He should be pardoned and be have his record completely expunged, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
he did at least get out because he's been sick and in prison for a long time. But yeah, there's one of the booths they go to is Leonard Peltier in a cage, and then and I forget what all the there, but there's a bunch of different ones as they go through this, and they're basically trying to find their mom, and it's a commentary on welfare, it's a commentary on abortion,
Yeah.
um, which again is relevant. This
Man.
is an album from 30 years ago, and it's still
Dang.
most of it is still very relevant today, which is kind of a sad commentary on this country that you can pull out a record made 30 years ago and have
Still relevant.
everything that on there is still an issue.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Shows
that's
how
definitely
we've
like
been.
I do need to get a copy of that on vinyl because it's
Now, what would you say the album was again?
the Goats is the group,
The
and the
Goats.
album is called Tricks of the Shade.
Tricks of the Shade.
Yeah. So
Man, I mean, I like the album already for the skits that you were just talking about. Just
I mean, I listen a lot just for the skits, but I mean the songs are good. There's songs like Not Your Typical American was a good one.
mhm.
Like it's funny because not all the songs are really political. I mean, there's that one. There's lines in them. There's like Do the Dig Dugs, and I'm
Yeah,
trying to remember some of the other songs, but it's just the skits make it one of the most political like statements of a hip hop album of all time. Like,
yeah.
you know, and yeah, so I would definitely check it out and listen to it. What I would love to see is if they actually pulled that down and made a movie of the skits.
That would be wild. 'Cause it's very. It seems like it's very entertaining off the rip, though.
It is. I mean, it's like, excuse me, when they do the Leonard Peltier in the cage,
Yeah.
the song playing is that old 10 Little Indians.
Really.
Yeah, so it's a, like incredibly racist, like kids like song,
Yeah.
but it's playing and then they talk to him and yeah, I'm trying to remember the different skits, but it's you know it talks you know cops, drugs,
Everything.
government corruption. I mean, the whole thing is called Uncle Sam's federally funded freak show is the name of the carnival that they're at.
Yeah.
So right there, and the Georgie Bush kids are you know the Harvard kids that are selling dope and stuff like that. So
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I like it just already from the skits.
yeah,
I love the imagination that they had to
it
put
was
this
definitely a
together.
very creative album.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was very
yeah,
something I ain't ever even thought about.
yeah. It was. Yeah, I still remember the day I got it. I was like, "This is so awesome!" Like it was just so cool. And then again, I mean, it was very much like Public Enemy. It like made me think about things.
Hmm.
That was the first time I'd heard of Leonard Peltier, and I really didn't think a lot of him until later when I just saw the video for Freedom from Rage Against the Machine in the late '90s, and that whole video basically tells the story of Leonard Peltier.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool that these guys were actually bringing him up 10 years before that, or 8 years before that, 7 years,
Hmm.
I don't know, whatever the timing, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, but yeah, it was one of those albums that again made me think about things and like helped me kind of look at the world in a different way. So, um, yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, I've always just loved music that has a statement. I think that's why I like a lot of punk too, because
Punk has a lot of that
punk
same.
is very, anti-cop, anti-government, very,
Yeah.
anarchist. There's a lot of like, anarcho-punk and crust punk that is very,
Rebelish.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, extremely. Um, so I really, yeah, enjoy that. Even so, the music's not always great with punk. It's sometimes real simplistic and loud and thrashy, but when they're sitting there just,
Still saying something.
but that's intelligent, like what they're saying a lot of times. That's why I like Dead Kennedys. If you want to check out some punk, the,
She got Dead
the
Kennedys.
political nature. Yeah, Dead Kennedys. Plus, they were actually really talented. Their guitarist, East Bay Ray, is kind of a almost a classic like surf rock kind of guitarist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then their drumming is so much more than a lot of drummers. Punk drummers. They're kind of in that same realm as Bad Brains, which I think we've talked about, which was the all black Rastafarian.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we did.
So yeah. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, as for the whole this whole collection, man, it's definitely some real heavy
yeah.
political albums.
I mean,
And
there's stuff like we forgot to bring. I didn't bring up Karis One and
oh yeah,
Boogie Down
yeah,
Productions,
yeah.
Brand Nubian. Um, let's see. I'm sure there's so many more I'm thinking of. Even like Beastie Boys had, you know, songs that had, especially later, they got very
More political with
more
it.
progressive over the years.
Yeah.
Just a lot of times it was just lines here and there that were progressive. Not necessarily full songs, but
Uh huh.
um, yeah. So
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, man, this is a good collection for it. And I love the imagery of these albums too. What like because you know how it's gonna be a political album when you see like it
yeah,
has like a political imagery
yeah.
on the cover.
When you've got Public Enemy
Yeah, behind
behind us, yeah,
bars.
behind the bars, yeah. Where you just got I mean, this one too, like Fear of the Black
Yeah,
Planet. You
Fear of the
got
Black
the
Planet.
Black Planet taking over America. I mean, that actually said a lot.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, there was one other thing I was gonna, and I think we've talked about. I think it was Lil Baby,
Little
who
baby.
he had that song that came out right after the
George Floyd
George
thing?
Floyd stuff,
Yeah, yeah, little baby.
which I was really impressed by because my image of him was just this kind of trap rapper that wasn't really saying much,
Uh huh.
and for him to come out, the song again, it's just kind of a trap song, but the fact that it actually said something,
Say something.
actually, I was really impressed by that and the video and
Yeah.
everything. So that impressed me a lot for somebody to come out and actually that wasn't known for that,
Mm-hmm.
and that could potentially have damaged his career, and just depending
Yeah.
on. But it
How?
did.
I
I don't
mean,
think it did, but it could have very well. I mean, he took a risk with that, so it's good to see. And this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. I think where you said you you get music kind of goes pop and stuff, but then it's reactionary, and so I
yeah.
think you know that was a good response. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a ton of that since then,
Yeah.
but
And I feel like it's a lot of people out there who's, well, big people
yeah,
are too kind of like, don't want to lose their fan base so over that type of,
yeah,
because it's like if you're not already making it, it's kind of hard to like switch
yeah,
over and be like, okay, I kind of want to be a little bit more conscious about what
yeah.
I'm saying now.
Um, one we should have actually brought up. I don't have any of his vinyl yet, but Bamboo.
Oh yeah, bamboo. Yeah,
Most of his stuff is very, especially that last one. The if you see somebody stealing food,
no,
but
you
you
didn't.
didn't.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, there's a song in there called Infatada, which is all about Palestine.
Uh huh.
And then there's songs in there, oink oink piggy piggy,
Yeah,
all about cops.
yeah,
Um, and even all throughout that album, there's a lots of comment about Palestine and the genocide going on over there. And then there's also the one song that's all about the president of the Philippines, how corrupt he was, and how his corrupt son took over. And
yeah.
and then you listen to a bunch of his other albums, and it's all peppered with all
Some
kinds of
yeah, some kind of like
political
yeah,
comment and references and stuff like that. So yeah, he's definitely another one I would check out. So
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I feel like we still forgetting a slew of other
Oh
people
yeah,
too.
there's so many out there.
Yeah, come on, like I don't want to really say J Cole-ish, but J Cole is
He would fall, I think, into that conscious realm.
yeah, he definitely in
He
the
actually
conscious realm. Cause
says things that have meaning to him, but it's not
yeah,
necessarily political.
which I don't know if you ever heard that because his this album kind of goes slept on by J Cole. It's called For Your Eyes Only.
That was that's not his last one, right? That
No,
was
no, no. This
that
one
may
came
be
out like
late. Okay,
2016.
all right.
It's man, that's probably one of my favorite
Yeah,
J
have to
Cole
check that
albums.
out.
Yeah, yeah, but it's pretty much about like the day in the life of Well, I ain't gonna say it's a day. Like, it's about his homeboy who passed away,
Okay,
and yeah, once you get through the album, you see what happens and stuff.
well, okay, yeah, I'll
Yeah,
check that out. So, um,
was that is that all? Is that it?
yeah, we should probably have gone on. I don't know how far
Yeah.
we went. My clock wasn't working. So, um, do we want to do our
Top
top five
five.
first, or are we doing the recommendation first? I forget
You
which
know
order we
what?
were doing.
Speaking of the recommendation, that's probably my recommendation right there.
Okay.
The J Cole one.
I was going to recommend, and I've just came across this group, and they actually kind of fallen because they do have some political nature to them, but it's a group called I Am, spelled capital IAM,
Okay.
and they're a French rap group.
Oh,
It
really?
apparently came out in '91, and I was not, and I'm just ashamed that I'm not familiar with them because they actually did stuff with the Wu-Tang Clan
Oh
and like
man, really?
Prodigal Son and a few other people have shown up on their stuff. But um, they, from what I understand, I can't understand their words, but just reading about them, a lot of stuff has very political, very Afrocentric
Yeah.
from a French point of view. But there was one song off their first album that was all about like slavery and France's involvement in it. But I'm just in the last week, I've been listening to them a lot.
Okay.
And even though, like I said, I can't understand them, it's just their first album, which came out in '91, definitely does kind of have. It didn't age quite as well beat wise for the most part. That song about the slaver, and I can't. It's a French name, so
Yeah.
and I can't. I wouldn't do it justice. But that song, I think, is relevant. But some of the other songs kind of have that early '90s. It doesn't really carry.
Hmm.
But the other album I was listening to came out in '97, and again, it's another French one. I can't
Can't think of
can't
yeah, understand and stuff.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the beats on that one are really good. The way they rap and stuff, even though it's all in French, it sounds really good. I'm trying to look and see if I can find translations easily of their lyrics and stuff. I'm sure I can.
Yeah.
I just haven't. I've
You
looked
gotta
a
get
little
it.
bit, but haven't dug deep into it yet. But yeah, I would definitely recommend both of them. And then on a side note is another group from Ireland called Kneecap,
Hmm.
which I've recently came across. I don't know if you've ever heard of them,
No, I
but
never heard of them.
it's a crew of guys out of, and it's I think some of it's political nature as well, but it's kind of a mix. And some of the stuff I heard, they kind of venture from boom bap to kind of a modern sound to like actual like rave music,
Re-
like techno kind of like they're all over the place.
yeah, they're really all over the
Yeah,
place.
but I would recommend checking out both of them, especially, there's a lot of good music outside of the US, so I would definitely, I've been trying to actually dig into that more. So
Yeah.
those would be my two is Kneecap and I Am.
There's one album I forgot about that is very political. Joey Badass is All American Badass. My bad. I forgot about that
Yeah.
album. But yeah,
I'm
that
familiar with it, but I've never really listened to it. Is it
yeah, no, it's political.
is it okay? I assume so
It's
because of
yeah,
the yeah.
yeah, it is political. I mean, even on the front cover, he's hanging out the window with the
There's a
it's the,
flag something,
yeah,
right?
it's an American flag, but it's like bandana, like kind of
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, through that album, he's just talking about the last song on that album. Whoo, he goes in on like what the government is doing to us and stuff like
All
that,
right.
and how to move and stuff like that. It's a pretty good listen. So yeah, that's why I wanted to add that one to the
All right.
list as well.
I'm gonna throw one more on there too. It's a
Gotcha.
song. It's by Kanan, Knaan,
Okay.
and what's her name? Snow the Product,
Oh, Snow the Product.
and a Mexican rapper. I can't remember his name, but it's called Immigrants. And from what I believe, the song came out 5 or 6 years ago.
Is it? Hold on. I think I might have aired it because it's like multiple rappers on there,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
Kanan, and
yeah.
then her, and then the Mexican rapper.
Uh huh.
But it's basically the story of immigrants. Now,
Yeah,
like again, it's one of those. It's like it's an older song, but
it's still relevant
yeah,
to the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's a recommendation. So let's do. Just do that one that filled
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
All right. That was easy. Top 5 instrumental hip hop albums. You probably aren't.
Yeah.
You don't listen to too much
yeah.
of
I'm
that.
not. I'm not too versed in that.
All right. So
That
I'm gonna have to
aspect.
do this. Um, the I'm gonna pick the what I think is considered the first like official instrumental hip hop album. I think I don't other than like instrumental versions of albums. This was one that was
Okay.
recorded as an instrumental, and that would be Company's Flow's "Little Johnny from the Hospital." And that
Okay.
one they because Company Flow came out with Fun Crusher Plus
Mm-hmm.
on Raucous and was a huge underground hit in their late '90s. Um, and then they turned around and was like, "Here's our next album," and it was all instrumental. And I think Ruckus was not too happy about it, but it's just a really good. It has that if you like Company Flow, which speaking of Run the Jewels earlier, LP was one of the main guys of Company Flow.
Oh, he
So
was on
that
that.
was his original group. Him
Okay.
and Big Jess and Mr. Lin were Company Flow. Um, so I think that one deserves, and it's a good album. There's some really like weird samples and stuff on there too, though, like dialogue and stuff. But it's really a good kind of heavy industrial kind of boom bap
Uh huh.
style, like very reminiscent of that, or very good example of that New York kind of vibe at that time. So,
Yeah.
and then the next one I would say is probably Introducing, Introducing
Okay.
by
Interesting.
DJ Shadow, which was one of the first really like DJ albums, like turntablist type of albums that was more music than turntablism. So a really good kind of soulful, you know, has thousands of samples or hundreds of samples on it. I don't know how many. I think it might have at one point Winter had a was a record for how many samples on it. I think that's been beat by a band called Avalanche. But
Dang.
um,
Do
yeah,
they
it's
have to with those? Do they have to release it for free?
no,
Because
it was
those.
put out on a major label at the time, and I forget which one. And it's been reissued multiple times.
Oh,
I
okay.
think Ninja Tune put it out, which is a big music label
So
out of
pretty much all the samples got cleared.
yeah. I think there's a lot of samples on there that are chopped up so well though that he didn't need to clear them. I think that's part of it. But yeah, I think they so I don't know how much, and he's been putting out a lot of music over the years. He's actually just pulling out a few years ago. But that one is a classic. Like it's a really good, just just a beautiful album like to
Yeah.
listen to. Let's see, another instrumental. I think Blockhead is a good call. And he's put out a lot of good ones. I think we've talked a little bit about him. He's produced a lot for like Aesop Rock.
Mm.
Um, he's produced a bunch of stuff on the Backwoods Studio label that I've mentioned
Yeah, you did
briefly.
mention it. Okay.
But his what is it? Interludes.
If he did anything off of that Impossible Kid album, he got a nice sound to him.
I think Impossible Kid was all by Aesop Rock. I think the
Oh
Blockhead
yeah.
stuff was some of his earlier things, and then they actually did an album after that that was all him.
Oh, okay.
Um, the Blockhead's too far. Oh, no, here it is. Music by Cave Light. Music by Cave Light was the one I was thinking of. That was his first solo album. That was put out on Ninja Tune as well, which is the label I mentioned for Shadow. Again, just a really good. And he's not a turntablist. It was an instrumental album that he made,
Yeah.
all samples and stuff, and just really soulful. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to really even explain. The sound, I don't know, just a good classic hip hop vibe, but it's all instrumental.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's not like you're not like sitting there like, oh, I wish somebody was rapping on that. You can actually
That you
listen
actually
to it.
just
You're like,
like
yeah,
listen to it.
I'll put that on quite a bit. Those albums of his, because it's just a good vibe. Um, oh my God, I know I have a bunch more. There's
Yeah,
a bunch of.
it's okay because I'm completely wiped out. I don't have nothing.
Let's see. Of course, I can't see any of them. Um,
You got that one with the tiger one, right?
oh
With
yeah,
the
that one. Yeah, that's Hive and the
hive, yeah.
what was the name of that album? Devious Methods. That one delves more into like a drum and bass sound, but it's very much rooted in hip hop in my opinion.
Okay.
It's an up tempo record,
Yeah.
so it's got higher, like 160,
Oh,
140.
BPMs and
Yeah,
stuff.
so it's faster with the drum breaks.
Yeah.
But it's still like it's very much a hip hop album. And I mean, half the songs are down tempo too. It's just some are fast, some are, but it's yeah, I would consider that probably one of the best. I think it's one of my favorites. Another one, and this one's more on that kind of a jazzy drum and bass, not necessarily hip hop, would be a guy named LTJ Bookham.
LTJ Bookham.
Yeah, and I can't think of the name of his album. I think it's right down there.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the title of it, but that one is a really cool jazzy vibe to it. Like it's got kind of up tempo beats, but horns and stuff like that on it. And yeah, that's a really good album.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to pull one more out here. Um, I've actually come across a few recently from like European, and I'm trying to think.
Like producers.
Yeah, excuse me. There's a record store in Berlin called HHV, and they do a lot. They seem to have a lot of hip hop. Um, but they have a sub label called Keats, I think it was,
Uh-huh.
and they've put out a series of albums. They're like Keats 1, Keats 2, Keats 3, but each one is a different producer or a group. But it's primarily instrumental.
Uh-huh.
Hip hop, I think some of it delves a little bit more into kind of maybe electro jazz type of stuff, but I think all of it's kind of rooted in instrumental hip hop. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I would consider great. They're good, but I'm trying to think. Emapia, Emapea, he's a Polish producer, and he's got a few really good albums. I can't think of the one that is my favorite but it's really good. So
This is pretty
yeah, so go find my favorite MAP album, and that's the one.
good.
So yeah, but yeah, so I would yeah. I mean, there's this guy and I can't think of his name, but he's from Mongolia,
Oh,
and
he's out here to make some
yeah,
noise.
and put out this really excellent kind of jazzy boom bapish type album. Yeah,
See, for me, I'm not turned away by listening to
mhm,
completely instrumental album. Uh, but I'm with when I think of instrumental albums, sometimes I'm just thinking about like you know how you just kind of like just beat just the beat, like you know what I'm
like
saying,
beat
like
tapes or something like that.
it's not like a musical
Mm,
type of experience, because if I'm just listening to uh just instrumentals, like I would like it to be more musical.
yeah,
I like to have like a little bit more free range. I don't want it to be blocks, like kind of like blocked in, if that makes
yeah.
sense, or just loops, kind of
You
like back
wanted
and forth.
yeah, more organic.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
organic, that type
and
feels.
some of these I think very much like the MPO ones really they do have a vibe. They're almost like jazz albums. Um, Same with like even the Hive one, even though it's faster drum and bass, it
Mm,
moves around a lot. It's not just a static like
yeah,
loop over and over again. I mean, and that's same with like the Shadow album um and some of these other ones that I can't think of any of the names of. They're
yeah,
all very much melodic. You
that
know,
type
they're
of
yeah. I mean, like I said, they're almost all fall into that like kind of an instrumental jazz, but it's all hip hop. You know, it's all based on break beats or
yeah,
programmed drums and stuff. But the music and stuff is yeah. So
yeah. I can see me listen to like a jazz
yeah,
uh
and
instrumental
there's
track.
a lot of times I throw one those records on and just sit here reading on the weekends and stuff like that.
Hey,
So
hey, that's a
because it's a
vibe.
good vibe, yeah.
That
You
is a
just
vibe.
yeah, because sometimes when you're listening to the vocals, it's hard to read because you're like listening. So
Yeah.
and for me, always like I think we've talked like for me, it's the music is the main thing
Uh-huh.
for hip hop. Like that's what pulls me in first, and
Yeah.
so I that's why I can listen to instrumental stuff more because
That's the main
the
thing you
bad
turn
rapper's not
into.
getting in the way of a great beat.
Yeah. I think
So
my favorite, probably like what I see consider as an ideal kind of like album. If I You ever heard the song "Searching" by Roy Ayers? Roy
I'm sure I
Ayers?
have, but I know
It's
Roy Ayers. Rest in peace. He just passed away
Oh, he
actually.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, well, R.I.P. Roy Ayers. But yeah, he has a song called "Searching," and if I had to listen to an instrumental like that, that'd be lovely, because it's
Okay.
just like through the
Yeah.
whole song, it's just kind of like, has these highs and lows and just like these whimsical kind of like keys, like
I
yeah.
think one of the groups he was part of was a group called Ubiquity, and they had
Ubiquity.
this Ubiquity,
Oh, ubiquity.
and they had a song called Ubiquity Star Booty, and it's one of the greatest like cheesy disco-ish. I went away to this when I was a teenager, a church camp in
Yeah.
Idaho, and one of the guys there was they were from California, and they were up there too, but he had that record, and we would just because it's like I'm a star, you're a star, star booty, like
Oh,
we would just sit
that's
there just dying like listening to it. But it's still like a great song, like it's a cool song, but it's so like cheesy in a way. But that's my Roy.
yeah.
But no, I'm a big Roy Ayers fan. I like a lot of his stuff. I mean, Sunshine is one of the probably
The sunshine.
yeah you would recognize. I think everybody in there
Is it the
like Mary J. Blige used it.
I'm
Every other rapper
pretty
in the
sure
world
I'm
has
pretty
used
sure I know what you're
Sunshine.
talking about. Sunshine.
Sunshine, like I can't sing at all, but that's kind of like a female voice saying sun. Like anyway, I don't. I'm embarrassing myself there,
Now you
but
good.
yeah,
This
but
is
no,
no. I'm thinking about somebody else. Okay, I think I know what you're talking
all
about.
right,
Sunshine.
you would recognize it in a heartbeat because it's been sampled so many times.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the sunshine. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's
Oh
the
yeah.
yeah. I
Oh
think that's
yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That. Yeah.
I was
Exactly.
trying
What
to
is it?
like pull the whole thing
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good one. I
yeah.
think he got a song. Don't know the name of it, but it's like, if y'all do, it's like yippee doo, run, run. I think it might be called Run. It might be called
Okay.
Run, but that one just got a special place in my heart just because it was on the game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Oh,
Every time I hear that song, it brings, I have a deep the nostalgia that just rushes over me. So yeah, but
cool.
yeah, I guess that's it for today, right?
Yeah, I think so. We've done everything I think we're supposed to do.
Oh, that's good. So you wanna, I guess, exit them out.
What's that?
You wanna X them out, X out.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Are you good?
Yep. So thanks everybody for listening in. I hope you guys enjoyed. And like we always ask, please like, share, subscribe. Um, just help us try to get that get this out there and get more people listening, and so we can keep growing.
Yes, indeed. And we will see you guys next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.